always we ensure that we keep you informed with what is happening locally and internationally. So make it a date with us. We'll spice up your morning with relevant information so that you start your day a very informed person, ready to fit in any topical discussion, both locally and internationally. Once again, I'm Robert Chirabo Nyonyitono. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Extra. Now here we focus deeper, a bit lengthy, on issues of national concern. Yesterday was World Intellectual Property Day. When we talk about intellectual property, many people wonder the word intellectual, then property, though it has sounded more when it comes to those in performing arts, regarding securing their arts or their works. Now, joining me on set today is Patrick Joram Mugisha, who happens to be, that is the CEO of Innovate Labs Africa, with whom we are going to be discussing more regarding intellectual property, but also understand how he's benefited from intellectual property. He's a person well knowledgeable when it comes to intellectual property. For a long time, I've known him as one of those people, the mouthpiece when it comes to promoting intellectual property. Patrick, you're most welcome to our studios this morning.
Thank you, sir. I'm really happy to be here and to share thoughts, ideas with fellow Ugandans, and maybe across board, both globally, who have tuned into this morning show, to really shed more light on this subject matter, especially post the World IP Day. Yeah.
First, let's understand, when we talk about IP, that's intellectual property, what are we referring to? Help us demystify this for our audience.
Thank you very much. In particular, in principle, IP will be looking at the power of the mind. The power of the mind to create, the power of the mind to translate the tangible forms. So IP takes different forms, and we've got when you're able to think of a new product. For example, if you look at this studio, the cameras, these are all works of scientific engineering and ingenuity. But then you've mentioned also in your introduction works of performing artists, the musicians, artists, photographers, the artists themselves. All these emerge from out of creativity and curiosity. So in principle, IP enables you to really turn what you feel is relevant in the mind and bring it down onto a tangible form. So really, when you call of intellectual property, you may ask, why is it a property? It is a property because once the idea is transformed into a tangible output, then of course you can own it, you can sell it, you can rent it, you can lease it out. That's IP.
It is a property.
It is a property.
Very interesting there. Now, you're CEO of Innovate Labs Africa.
Yes, sir.
And as we're talking about intellectual property, help us understand what this is about.
Yes.
And how does intellectual property now fit into innovation that inspired you to come up with Innovate Lab?
Yeah, so basically, Innovate Labs Africa, what triggered us or catalyzed the process of setting up this entity was really to bring in a key player in the private sector that would really rally and complement what was happening in the public sector. Uganda has got an act or a legal framework for public-private partnerships, but of course, policy issues in this country are meant to be implemented by both the public and the private sector. So what guided us is that there are legal frameworks that govern intellectual property in this country. There is a national IP policy that was approved and launched in 2019. So there are components that the public sector itself might not really have enough or sufficient muscles to implement this to the very end, but it needed a supporting arm of the private sector. And that's why we came on board. So as consultants, technology advisors, and our game is that intellectual property spans over 4 major areas. You need to generate the intellectual property. After you've generated the IP, you need to protect it. After you protect it, so what next? You need to make sense out of the sense. you commercialize it for you to recoup back what the benefits, economic benefits could potentially accrue from this. Then the next thing, it being a property exclusively yours as the inventor or creator, you need to enforce it to make sure that no one is going to free ride on it in what we call infringement. So we work through with our clients in the entire value chain. So we are looking at universities, institutions of higher education, TVETs, we are looking at startups, early businesses, established micro SMEs, and also public research institutions. This really helps them, especially in setting up strategies in-house on how to ably identify their intellectual property, the potential intellectual property, have a strategy on how to seek protection, have a strategy on how to commercialize it and make sense out of it. Yes.
So take us through these phases you've just mentioned.
Yes, sir.
How do you assist, for example, maybe someone who comes up with a unique machine,
yes, sir,
maybe in detecting weather changes?
Yes, sir.
So how does Innovate Lab Africa come in here?
Now, the uniqueness that we present, technically my team has both science and engineering background. So on that team we've got, personally I'm a synthetic organic chemist, and my major area is in the space of medicinal chemistry, drug discovery, and industrial chemistry, but also an intellectual property expert. We've got an electrical engineer on board, we've got a mechanical engineer on board, we've got a petroleum engineer on board, an agricultural engineer, and a software engineer. So in principle, all the common facets of what we talk about science, engineering, technology, technically, you'd come with that idea. We should be able to really first understand what your idea is all about. What has to be, what has to come out clearly, of course, for the audience is that not every idea can lead to a potential intellectual property. Yeah, because my brother, you can think of that machine that detects weather when someone also has thought about it. But the question is, how you focused your thoughts, how different is it from the other party? So that's where we come down and say, okay, you want, this is what your idea is all about. So again, this idea, a potential solution, what is it addressing? What is the technical problem that this new machine is going to address? Then we'll try to do what we call a prior art search. Let us look at what has been done before, maybe in this particular area. Is there any existing machine of that nature? In part, it may not be in Uganda, but it could be in South Korea, for example. So there are databases or maybe specialized softwares and tools that we use to make sure that you're able to check what you're thinking about, how relevant, how new is it, how original is it. Once we find it's original, we take you through a form of narrowing down your scope for you to be able to do that now. To me, this is what I'm thinking. But we tell you, wait, this is what exists in literature. How different is this from what you're thinking? So we panel beat that thought process into a form that easily presents your idea, confines it into what really is desirous on your end. Now remember, as an expert, I shouldn't take the seat of an inventor. No, you are the inventor, so you really know your idea best. That's why someone will tell you that, so what are you saying? Is this what you're thinking? You say, no, I meant this. So you know your idea better. But there are moments when you find an inventor may have not been skilled in terms of education. Example, this is the informal players in the sector today. Some of them, there's someone who didn't go to school, but that tacit knowledge, ingenuity, natural intelligence, he can make something that can amaze even a university graduate. Now, that's a totally different stakeholder to engage. From how we shall engage you as an engineer from Makerere University will be very different from how we shall engage that innovator from Katwe. Totally different. But we have to panel beat, make sure that we reduce that idea into a form that now is ready to go to the National IP Office to seek and file it and seek protection. Of course, the National IP Office is hosted by Uganda Registration Services Bureau, who have done a tremendous job in this space of IP over the last couple of years. Yeah.
Now, help us also understand what are the benefits of the relevancy of protecting, because I believe there are so many people there that have a lot of intellectual property.
Yes.
So many innovators.
Yes.
By the way, Uganda, when you choose to move, you find wonders in this country, mostly in the informal sector.
Exactly.
These guys have come up with a lot of solutions to
Yes.
problems.
Yes.
But issues of patenting, protecting their works have no meaning to them.
Yes.
Why should one go to that extent?
So that's to appreciate this, because at the end of the day, IP in itself, owning IP in itself, does not guarantee you commercial success. That's for sure. Why? Because there are so many patents out there that people have been granted, but they have never used any of them to actually seek commercial benefit out of it. However, let us take the two sides. There is clear evidence globally of the benefits of one acquiring intellectual property for his innovations or in running his particular business entity. The most important thing why IP becomes quite relevant is that exclusive or temporary monopoly that IP grants you. A patent, for example, if you're granted a patent by, let's say, Uganda Registration Services Bureau, the National IP Office, you have 20 years of exclusivity. My brother, 20 years when you are blocking any other person from engaging in a similar business like you, won't you be rich?
You would.
You would be rich, yes. But however, there's also potential, the possibility that you may also not be rich if you do not have the right strategy. So chances are, I could be a good inventor, but I don't have the right business acumen to make me translate this a patent into a tangible commercial benefit. So in the process, you'd find the reason why definitely you'd need to seek this is number one. It's just a shield that this is my space. I own this idea. I'm the one who's the inventor or the creator of it. So I need to recoup my returns based on the ability that I had to undertake on creating this piece of work. And if that's not possible, for the case like, for example, you look at people in the informal sector. Now, the only challenge is that you are not going to wake up one day and you say that I own an IP before it's taken through the entire criteria of assessment by the National IP Office to ascertain that indeed you have an IP in this space. So it has to be determined. But the question is also, the truth is, even as much as we are trying to add a brick onto the big picture, there's still a lot of work that has to be done in this space. Especially looking at the informal sector, even the current micro SMEs in this country. Look at the startup ecosystem in Uganda. A lot has to be emphasized. They really need to appreciate how this works out. And it's not a journey of one day. It's a long path to take, but where private sector and public sector come on board to support both players to make sense out of this. Yeah.
Well, this year's theme focused more on the youth.
Yes, sir.
But also, how tedious or how easy is the process for one to secure intellectual property? Or, because most of the times, or even the costs, if you're at liberty, to disclose this, because most of the times bureaucracy, sometimes many innovators are young.
Yes.
In some developed world, you find that they'll come with these ideas. Then there's an annual conference or something where these young innovators display their works.
Yes.
And these big companies are there.
Yes.
So they are willing to help them or buy that and help them patent or secure it. So the company knows if you are dealing in electronics, this young man has come up with some of the, we need him or we need his works.
Yes.
So they can easily benefit from that.
Yes.
come to Uganda, like you said, you will have it, sit there with it, much as there are benefits that for 20 years no one can engage in this. So how quick is that situation? Because these are some of the deterrent factors.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, this year, when the World Intellectual Property Organization decided to set the theme for this year to be IP and the youth, of course, it was on recognition globally that the future belongs to the youth. And a creative mind, I mean, the youth, the energy they put on board, the creativity and especially the curiosity they have towards problems that happen around them is quite something that all governments globally need to tap into it. But as you said, Uganda's innovation space or ecosystem is still nascent. I mean, it's yet to really kind of like get to be well defined, get all the different actors to really know what their roles are, and to actually have a coordinated framework on how everyone should actually understand this is what I ought to do, and also those that need to be supported for them to be able to understand where do they need to go. Now, if you compare the cost of IP acquisition in Uganda compared to other maybe jurisdictions, let's say maybe in East Africa, it's quite within acceptable limits in terms of affordability. For example, a patent in Uganda, just for the first year of acquisition, whatever is required, it should be something from 500 to about 600,000 Ugandan shillings. But now, me and you could be talking from that level, yes, 500, 600,000. But to a youth who has just finished school, that's not something that
it could even be the capital it requires.
Exactly. So now that then calls for different actors in the ecosystem, both public and private players, to come on board and see how do we really ably support this. And Innovate Labs Africa, this is the gap we actually wanted to exploit. Number one, it's not all about making money as a company. It's that impact and the support you're going to help this youth leapfrog that current status and go to another level. But again, that kind of strategic advice that we give you on what you ought to do, what comes first, what should you prioritize, is what really sets us apart on how we move these things to the next level. So I think it's still a challenge, but I think let's not give up. It's not that there's nothing happening. People are doing something. We've got entities like, for example, NACE. We've got entities like Startup Uganda, who are really trying as much to make sure that we bring some sanity in this space. But there's still a lot to kind of at stake, and also to engage policymakers to understand ably how do we make innovation part and parcel of what we talk about as Ugandans. I mean, it's something that we can always think about for many years to come.
Well, our viewers will now go for a short commercial break, and when we return, I and Patrick will still be discussing more regarding intellectual property, commonly IP. When you hear that term, it's an abbreviation for intellectual property. Yes. We want to know, the day we had the celebrations yesterday, yes, what next? What next for the youth? What next in terms of ensuring that people reap from their sweat? It hurts when a person spends sleepless nights. By the end of the day, the idea is out, and someone just duplicates that and gets money out of that. We'll return shortly.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
This is how we play. Play with power.
This is how we do it.
How we put a team together. This is how we pass on greatness. Because with this team to inspire us, there's nothing we can't do.
Go for goals and win. Buy a Pepsi glass bottle or Pepsi Max 330 ml. Check another crown and win soda, TVs, caps, t-shirts and cash. Redeem prizes at any Pepsi depot or truck countrywide. Terms and conditions apply. Pepsi. for the love of it.
Total Energies has undertaken a number of initiatives aimed at ensuring that Ugandan entities and citizens are adequately equipped to participate in the oil and gas sector.
Yeah, we do manufacture and supply personal protective equipment. We supply beyond Total Energies. We supply their subcontractors. Yeah, we have seen our company transform from a trading company to a manufacturing entity. We are able to set up some of these facilities that we are enjoying right now. And these facilities also are supporting other sub-sectors. So they have no idea what oil and gas is, but the items they are using are a result of oil and gas. Overall, the industry, manufacturers, suppliers, traders will all enjoy.
Total Energies EP Uganda is committed to the empowerment of Ugandans to take an active part in the overall development of the oil project in Uganda.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite shows.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
A World Cup in the desert? The first one in the Middle East. The first to be held at the end of the year? That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves, high-flying saves, unbelievable goals. Out of this world celebration.
Would you believe it? What a moment here!
All 64 matches live. That's over 5,000 action-packed minutes of the FIFA 2022 World Cup Qatar. Now that's crazy. Catch all the action only on SuperSport, your world of champions. On Go TV. Love it.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. We are still discussing innovation ecosystems, and to be more specific, that is the intellectual property. Now I'm with an innovator. I'm with a person who is well versed with intellectual property, and that is Patrick. Patrick, before we went for this break, we were looking at advantages, but now help us understand the nexus between innovation, entrepreneurship, and creativity. How do they blend together?
Yeah, thank you. So how we even, if you arrange all the three in that space, you realize creativity kind of takes precedence, because whatever you'd say you're going to put in commerce, it will begin from somewhere, from the mind. The idea, you see that gap and you decide, I'm going to take on it. So when you're able to create and innovate, chances either you're trying to add something new into the marketplace. This could be either a product, it could be a service, it could be a method of doing something different from what has been happening maybe currently. But at the end of the day, you want to earn an income. Now, the three go hand in hand. Remember, Uganda at one time, Uganda was ranked as the #1 entrepreneurial country in the world by the World Bank. It was also clear that we are quite enterprising, but the rate of failure is enormous.
Businesses don't live to see their first birthday.
Exactly. So what's the problem then? Is it that the idea was not good? No. The idea may have been good, but it all goes back to the supporting systems. And focusing on the youth in particular, number one, you're not going to stop the youth from thinking, because you're not going to come and make a declaration and Uganda says from today, excuse me, the youth should not think anymore. Impossible. You cannot do that.
Oh, they're unstoppable.
They're unstoppable.
If you have people that can innovate tear gas, people go as far as
exactly.
weapons.
So really, at the end of the day, it's an open space. Everyone, because what is happening around us is so amazing. And of course, there's also the new term that clearly now, we are living in what we refer to as the knowledge economy. The economy today, in terms of knowledge, is that what drives the global agenda of trade today is knowledge. And you find that, for example, if you look at the most prosperous countries in the world today, or the top players in the global GDP, these are guys who have got very strong and sustainable, efficient innovation ecosystems. And that's why you'd find, as much as there could be lesser, maybe would say that maybe the whatever their manufacturing capabilities as well, it's all honed onto the ability for them to innovate. So at the end of the day, it's just an issue of how do you bring these key aspects into one pot? Who should be the key actors to support this to work out? So that becomes like a connectivity, kind of like, or a web. So the different players are going to be there. Who's going to support the youth in creating? Who's going to support the youth in innovating? Who's going to support them to translate these ideas into potential or bankable business projects or maybe enterprises? So I think all this, again I say, you need different actors to make this a reality. The youth today, for example, let's say maybe the taxman, for example, or let's say the standard regulator, for example, let's say if a youth is actually conceptualizing around an idea of value addition in agriculture, it's not a cup of tea. You're not just going to wake up one day and start packing juice and say you're going to start selling it in supermarkets. There's a protocol. You need to abide by the regulators' framework. For example, in this country, we've got Uganda National Bureau of Standards. You want to put a product, a food product to the market, are you complying with the relevant standard? But the question is, as a youth, how do I start thinking of standards when actually I even don't have a manufacturing? So that means there's a need for proper dialogue by all key stakeholders for us to define what are these challenges that would really block the youth from ably participating in the grand agenda, especially now the National Development Plan 3 and overall the Vision 2040.
How does your organization then, that is Innovate Labs Africa, fit in to ensure that we expedite this process? Remember that is requiring, because even I was speaking to one of the youth regarding IPs, and he told me, Robert, the moment you risk, then taxation is at your door. Told me, so those things you're talking about, yes, I'll ask with someone who has my idea, who duplicates my idea in all forms. Told me, then you don't have a legal binding framework. Told me, no, but a business has just started. Because you think you're an innovator, you've got something unique, you go to, that is the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. The next tax man will be at your neck, and maybe you'll be frustrated, but since I have the experts, then that comes to you.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, those are some of the sentiments that actually, on Monday, we had a webinar where we're able to get different experts from this space to really discuss this subject at length, and also to allow the youth to present their sentiments. What you just mentioned was repeated by different youth from different backgrounds of business, and these are things that actually are reality. But the truth be told, Uganda's economy is private sector led. That one, it has become like a slogan, that Uganda's economy is private sector led. But the question is, based on what the private sector is contributing to Uganda's economy overall, are we only looking at those who are already established? Because, Robert, you don't wake up one day and you say that I'm a big enterprise in Uganda. No, there's a journey that you take to reach where the big status.
Actually, one businessman told me, you start small, grow big.
Grow big.
You start big, grow small.
Exactly. So now, in this space, why you have to go or take baby steps is it gives you a chance to learn. It gives you a chance to take risks. So as Innovate Labs Africa, what we do is that through our business development support kind of like a initiative or offering that represent startups and the private sector, is that we've honed our support around 5 major areas. Number one is, how do we help you to ensure that the leadership and governance of your enterprise really fits the bill? If you look at the legal compliance of your business, so legal compliance you're going to look at, I mean, are you in line with what URSB requires? Are you in line with what Uganda National Bureau of Standards requires? Or maybe Uganda Registration, Uganda Revenue Authority requires? And any other possible regulator depending on the space you're in. Then you look at, how do we support you to optimize your product? Then we look at your market segmentation that you're looking at. Then last, your business model. Robert, all of us can be selling the same product. But the business model that I'm going to present or craft around that product is what will differentiate what I get at the end of the day from what you get. So ask yourself, Robert, maybe this would give a good analogy. You go to Nakawa Market or Nakasero. How many women sell tomatoes?
About 9 tens.
There are many. You want to tell me any one of them goes home without selling?
I doubt.
Exactly.
Otherwise, the following day wouldn't.
Absolutely. But trust me, in that small setup, those women have managed to innovate around the competition in that space.
And there are those they know that this one has a lot of clients.
Exactly.
If a day he makes maybe profits of 100,
exactly,
the rest will know for us we are going to make 50.
Exactly. So if a foreign buyer passed, maybe a diplomat, one of them will say, this one does not understand Luganda. Let me use English. Sir, tomatoes here. Already that will tap someone that we can have dialogue. That Muzungu will go at that stall where the lady is able to communicate in English. Or if it's Swahili now, I mean ESC now, DRC has come on board, Ugandans have to embrace Kiswahili. Otherwise, it's going to be a very useful tool for trade. So in particular, we really want to support the businesses in that regard, the BDS model that we use. But again, we really want to walk the journey with this youth from the start to the very end. And of course, in the future as we grow, we should be able to have in place what we call a support fund from the private sector as a player, which is actually able to support these guys with the new innovations that they come on board and to take them to the next level. But again, we're also going to be advocates to engage public sector players with the networks we've created over the years to be able to bring them on board so that, please, let's have dialogue and let us address some of them. Regulators may not address all these problems, but they can address some of the problems. And some of these issues, Robert, they are policy issues.
And that requires a lot of effort when it comes to policy issues, because we want to ensure that our young innovators benefit from their works, like Patrick has told you, are taken through a series, because we believe so many ideas end at that. You move around, you'll find this unique machine that can be a problem solver, but the young man is stuck. He developed the idea, what next? I've seen a couple of young people trying to play around with the cars, the Kairas, I don't know if you're metal fabricators, you'll find all sorts, and you say, this is good art, you know, but something is lacking. Someone just needs to shape this. Someone needs to protect this. I've seen many who will tell you that, well, that was my idea, but someone took it up, they have the money, so they developed it, they just expounded on it, and now they are reaping big. Well, as me, I'm benefiting nothing. I have no anywhere I can go legally that can protect me. So this is what intellectual property is all about. And when you have the likes of Patrick and Innovate Labs Africa that is determined to see this young innovator throughout the chain to the right destination, I want to commend you guys.
Thank you so much.
Patrick, let me have your final remarks regarding that is intellectual property, and of course the way forward now that we've completed all the international IP day celebrations have ended.
Thank you so much, Robert. And what I would need to tell the youth is that, number one, in this life, to succeed, you need God's intervention at one point. You need to give God a chance. And the thing is that it's not quite often that getting a first class from university guarantees you employment. Not at all. You need God's favor. So in principle, even in business, in your pursuits, it's the same principle. But what drives us, one of our core values as Innovate Labs Africa, is integrity. We want to carry you through. We want to give you that audience to interact with you, listen to you, and also offer a platform for dialogue for us to take you to the next level. We want to promise Ugandan youth in the startup ecosystem, for example, who are those early businesses, ideators who are hoping to become business players tomorrow, is that we are willing to make our services more available in different platforms. And the truth be told, our dear youth out there, is that your problems are unique and they are diverse in nature. So we want to be able to segregate how we can engage them from a customized and well-coordinated point of view. And in that regard also, we shall make efforts to bring other players in the private sector and also reach out through public-private partnership with key players in the public sector to come on board who should actually play a key role in this space to make the future of the youth in this country quite formidable. And I hope, and with God's blessings, the youth should actually get a chance to see how Innovate Labs Africa can impact them, both directly and indirectly, to contribute ably to the NDP3. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick Joram. That is Mugisha, for finding time this morning. I hope, young innovator, wherever you are, you've greatly gotten knowledge regarding protecting your works, that is intellectual property, but also knowing that there is a place, there are people that are waiting to see you through your journey of innovation, to not only having these products, but also benefiting from them. Protecting your works is very, very important, because that is one of the only ways you are assured that this will be yours and you'll benefit from it. No matter who else uses it, they have to first seek permission. And your product can even make money when you're home seated. So have a lovely day. God bless you. Ensure that you're well versed with how to protect your intellectual property. See you tomorrow, same time. God bless you. Stay safe. COVID is still around. In case you've not gotten the vaccination, go and get vaccinated. See you tomorrow.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
This is how we play.